Hello again, friends. Today we're going to talk about the journey of the spiritual path and its relationship to the growing phenomena of spiritual materialism. Not in a negative way, solely in a way to analyze how, as we've grown as a civilization with technology and content and access to teachers and practices, how that can affect our direct connection with our most authentic way of connecting to the truth of our soul and our being, which ultimately, beyond all of this and all the teachers and all the practices and all the books, is ultimately the purpose of this human incarnation. So, the reason I wanted to talk about this is I feel that there's a lot of there's a proliferation of classes and courses and retreats and experiences and diets and books. There's so much, and it's a blessing. It's a blessing that we've had all these beings sharing information and knowledge and learning from one another across centuries and decades, and now with the internet and additional technology, the ability to take things and to morph them and evolve them. And there, as in every opportunity to express something as a human, there are blessings and there are dangers, trying to find the balance. And in that case, the balance of trying to find a path that feels intimately legitimate to your heart and your soul, and to find good quality teachers who have also been on a path for a long time dedicated to a practice, and at the same time are not proselytizing you, not saying it's the way or the only way. So to find that, let's be honest, it's not easy. That balance of deep, authentic practice, the knowingness that this is me and this is the full alignment of the birthing of my spiritual being. These practices at this time in my journey are things that I've found on my own path. I've discerned, I've discovered, and it's somatically aligned. It feels right in my body and my heart. It's aligned with my soul. That's an intuitive knowingness. And at the same time, not ever being too wed to anything, because of course all of life is changing into infinity, right? There's infinite possibility. And, having the freedom and the liberation to say, I don't know. I don't know. Instead of, I don't know. There's a huge difference in the same phrase and the same words, the use of those words. And the I don't know is the infinite. It is the creative. It is the forever possible, forever changing, forever perfect, forever beautiful. And the I know, therefore other people don't know. And that becomes very limiting. That becomes the world of destructive religion. That becomes the world of cult following. That becomes the world of ego, negative ego, and division and separation. And that division and separation, feeling a compulsion that you have to get other people to know your one version of experiencing the beauty of truth, can be very dangerous and very very heavy load to carry in an incarnation. And we see so many examples of this, right? I don't need to name them, but the people who I know, and I'm going to tell you best case. Worst case is I'm going to force you to know. So there is this reciprocal balance between being blessed with this access to all these teachers and all these teachings and all these paths and all these rituals and all these lineages, what I would say is it actually raises the onus on the individual, your individual heart, to be more discerning that these teachings and practices, for the most part, are all gateways and doorways into the same truth. Whether we use the word infinite love, whether we use the word connected creation, the one, whether we use God, the universe, whatever in this lifetime has become most comfortable for you to use as words to articulate that unfathomable perfection that we get to be a part of. At the same time, we have to feel even more carefully and more delicately, more sensitively into our heart center to know at this time in this place, like I've mentioned, what is the best tool for us. And most importantly, we have to be ready and willing to let go of all the other things that are not for us right now. It's no different than accumulating items. It's no different than accumulating friends, quote unquote. Anything that involves a teaching of balance will offer us the opportunity to be selective, discerning, aligned. And with that knowingness, we also have the opportunity then for additional clarity to let the other things disperse, to let them go naturally, let them go with an invitation, let them go with a bit of gentle, kind force when necessary. Every situation, every teacher, every relationship is different in terms of what it calls us to do for the right action, the highest right action, to come back to that point of stasis and balance and clarity. With that in mind, the most important thing that you can do is to follow your intuition. So your spiritual path compared to a religious path or just a path of intellectual learning and knowledge is, again, this somatic center and this wholeness that is part of you, that you've had since birth, that hasn't changed and will not change. You may become more or less sensitized to it. You may become more desensitized or less sensitized over time, and you may regain that. But the purity of that inner compass will remain the same. So everything that you had coming into this birth is exactly what you'll have going out of this birth. It is the mechanisms, the toolbox, the internal compass that does not change with the years. It does not change with education. It does not change with socialization. These things are, in fact, the inner layer of the complexity of this spacesuit that is meant for absolute guidance. So when I say that, everything else will change. The teachings will change, the way they're articulated will change, the way that retreats are held, how much they cost, all these things that will change. Just as in everything else, spirituality and religion, they have fads, they have phases, So even if you look at the let's say, the American practices of yoga, like they have phases, they have fads, the way that people were considering what yoga was 20 years ago and 5 and 10 and in the future will be totally different. Not necessarily good or bad. We're all on a time scale to connect to that deeper center of truth through these practices and through these methods. So all these things will change, but your ability to discern truth will not change. The ability to do that will be there. How much spaciousness and how much clarity you give to that sensibility is up to you. So oftentimes we're thinking that our practice is whatever we found recently that we're doing. It's a doing like not unlike washing the dishes or being on your phone. Like a practice can be a doing, and it can be an accumulated set of doings. And so what you need to try to do is you need to try to do a set of ways of being, a set of learnings around your being, so that this navigational system can be known as cleanly and clearly and fully and intimately as possible. Because that's what will then guide you into being drawn to a practice for that time in that way. And if you are connected cleanly and purely enough, it will also guide you out of that doingness into the next one that is benefiting the evolution of your soul. So, to recap this part of it, infinite access to these lessons, gratefulness, deep, deep gratefulness. What a beautiful, amazing time to have incarnated. Congrats. Advanced placement, right? So many challenges, so many teachings, so many learnings. As we experience this increase in disorganization and apparent disharmony and tension and temperatures rising literally and figuratively, at the same time, because of all the things that have evolved in relation to humanity, at the same time we have access to this infinite set of resources. And so, as a soul that's incarnated in this time, again, the onus is higher to trust the inner navigational system to know truth in the doingness of your practice. So beyond a book and beyond a retreat and beyond plant medicine and beyond the stars, beyond all of it, the truth of what you are is still here. And you can see glimpses of that with all these different practices, but you can't do them all at the same time. You can't do them because you feel obligated. You can't do them because you're feeling lonely and you're looking for community alone. You can't do them because you've built up a spiritual identity around a practice, and now that's your thing that you have to do because you've told people, this is the way. All those things have to be let go to remain free. Freedom, sovereignty, authenticity, courage, those are all the highest set of virtues to get to truth. And when we say truth as I'm discussing it would be here. And this again remains same. This relationship, this polishing of the heart, this knowingness within you, that is the essence of your spiritual being. And everything else we've just talked about is happening around that. So you're deciding to feed this. You're feeding this with other things that you're going to allow to come into your field. Other things are being brought into your field. I've talked about before that the way I experience life is that you're not manifesting. So you can be magnetic as electromagnetic beings that are filled only with vibration and polarity. Of course, there's a resonance or lack thereof with everything around us. That is a natural occurrence. You're not controlling that any more than you're controlling this. And if you still think you're controlling either one of those, well, that's a very early step on the path to then relinquish that. And there are practices and teachings to get past the concept that you're doing it all. Once you get past that, for the most part, then you understand that you're not going to manifest a new car. You're not going to manifest, you're not going to fulfill desires that you're seeking. You understand that this path and this incarnation for your soul It's all about learning and receiving and teaching, taking that in, embodying that, and then reflecting that out, pushing it back out into the world. Whatever that is. You can draw electromagnetically things that are disresonant, things that are disharmonious, and you imbibe that. You imbibe that through your media, you imbibe that through your relationships, you imbibe that in ways that you can't even perceive, and then you become that and you give that back to the world. As you get more clean and you get more clear, this is a process of cleaning. The spiritual journey is a process of cleaning. It's a process of letting go. It's a process of simplicity. And once you get further on that journey, these things start to move more clearly and more cleanly, in that ways that you imbibe all those energies like we just talked about. Then you start to radiate outward. You're not seeking to fulfill desires in the way that you once were. It's not that you don't have desires. Biochemically, as beings, if someone breaks in front of you in traffic, or, someone's unloyal in a relationship, or any of the things, the common examples, biochemically, your body is going to react. So it's not that you don't have desires. It's not that you're not aware of pleasure and pain, but those are not the things that are generating the entirety of the essence of your life. You're not waking up every morning to fulfill desires and to avoid pain and thinking that that is the purpose of this entire experience. That's no longer a thing at that point in time. So what's the message here? The message is that you're lucky to live in this time. You're lucky to have chosen to incarnate in this time, because the lessons and the intensity and the optionality that you have, all the options in the day, all the choices, the freedoms that you have been multiplied many times compared to previous periods of time and previous generations. So your ability to experience an almost limitless variety of pleasure and pain within a 24-hour period of taking in the problems of the world and also having a family at night and spending time with a child and spending time with a pet, that very deep, personal, intimate set of pleasures and pains combined with universal and now pervasive with climate, like something that you are always aware of and always going to be affected by as far as you can see. And it's nothing that you can directly feel like your individual action can control. It's a whole nother talk about inner and outer environment and climate change. We'll come to that. But generally speaking, that pervasiveness of something that is truly global, that you have a relationship with, and yet you don't feel you can have the autonomy to impact. So many layers to all of that. And we can say doom, gloom, oh. And from day to day, that is the authentic experience, and that's okay. But also, to be a soul in this time is an immaculately complex dance, artistic in its own way. And so having incarnated in this time, which I experience as a conscious decision that you made, you get to be encircled by all these practices and all these rituals and all these traditions. And your choice is to accumulate those, to feel guilt. You're not going to become awakened. You're not going to become enlightened. You're not going to experience peace unless you sign up for that next workshop you see on Instagram. Unless you leave everything behind and go into the cave in the Himalayas. It could be so many examples in this day and time. So knowing that you have this access to go beyond the impulsive desire, to go beyond the accumulation. So again, spiritual materialism. If the goal of a human life, an incarnation, and a spiritual path is to clean, purify, get to simplicity, which is aligned with truth, then you must be incredibly open to only stepping forward into that which is yours at this time. And the way through which you know that is the essence of your spiritual practice. That is your spiritual practice. It is the truth of the knowingness without any doubt or very little doubt, to have the courage to know what's right for you and not doing things other than that. Not going to a retreat you don't feel aligned with because your friends are going. You know, it's not a trip to the beach. You know, you're not coveting the state of your friend and therefore you're following their path. Because for every individual person, it will be totally, completely, utterly unique to you. And that's why I say, as you listen to things, including myself and everything else out there, it's resonating for someone, or people will stop doing what they're doing. And it's not resonating for many. Your job is to try to stay connected to your truth. And so there are practices beyond lineage to get clean and purify and create spaciousness. I say that over and over. I find in working with people, the biggest thing you can do to be helpful to know truth and just try to start listening is you have to give the universe an opportunity to be in relationship with you. And to do that, you have to create time and spaciousness for life to unfold, for life to flow. As long as you're stuck in the story that you're doing it, and without your doing it, I don't know, maybe you feel like nothing's going to happen, or only bad things would happen if you thought you weren't doing it. I don't know. There's so many permutations of the story, but my promise to you is that if you can create spaciousness in your life, which means letting go of a lot of the distraction, saying no to commitments that aren't aligned, letting relationships that are not aligned pass away naturally, or again, encouraging them gently. That is a commitment to simplicity. That commitment to simplicity will indefinitely lead you closer to truth because you've created space for truth to naturally come in. You don't let things go and then you fill it with truth. Truth already exists. It's just the stuff that we put up around us that doesn't allow us to receive it fully or to understand. So retreats are wonderful. Rituals are beautiful. Teachers are so helpful when they are aligned for you at the right time, in the right place, in the right way. The only person who knows that is you, and the only way that you know that is within here. The only way that you can get closer to here is you've got to create simplicity and spaciousness in your life so that these things can come to the forefront because you're sitting, you're listening, you're cleaning your life, you're simplifying, and you're listening. And you're trusting. You believe that you're not doing it all. You're not in control of what's happening in a beautiful, creative, liberating way. So that's really the chat for today. I find for myself, things shift and change. You know, around practices, around teachings, around teachers. And just like I'm encouraging you to do, I do the same. I try to remain authentically connected only to the things that are truly being brought to me. I'm trying to always listen to my ego saying, you should do this, you know. Something's brought in from another person and comes into my field really quickly and seems kind of like seductive to do, like, oh, that would be really exciting. Like, that's not mine. That's not for me. And letting go of practices. So having no shame or guilt around, in that moment, being deeply authentically connected to a practice and a ritual, and knowing when that time has come, it no longer serves you. Like, that is the truth. That is how the spiritual journey continues. That's how your soul evolves. To spend your entire lifetime wrapped around one learning that you know the time has come and gone, it's a disservice to the use of the time of having this experience. So I believe in you. I know that if you choose to make spaciousness in your life, if you can let things go and get quiet and get clean and purify, I have no doubt in the trust in the universe that you will start to experience things in a new and different way. And if you're already doing that, I thank you for your courage, for seeing this dance as something that's infinitely beautiful and forever changing. Oh, thank you for your courage if you're already on the path and you're allowing things to flow in and flow out with ease. It's not an easy journey, for sure. The path of bravery, of courage, to always keep coming back to this unchanging knowingness of truth and unconditional love. And that is the surrender. That is the surrender. So wherever you are, however you're hearing this, whatever practices you're using now, whichever ones you feel like you have got a story of seeking, start with spaciousness. Start with cleaning your life. Start with simplification. Don't add another layer first. Go there first. And then trust and see what happens. If I ever resonate with you as a teacher at the right time, here I am, beautiful. I trust that you will trust when it's the right time and when it's not the right time. And you will reach out and let go of me just like every other thing we've mentioned in a beautiful, perfect, wonderful way. Ram Dass would talk about, like your practice for the time being like crossing a river. And when you cross a stream or a river, your most necessary tool is your boat, right? So without that, in treacherous conditions, the likelihood of you getting across the river and continuing the journey is not likely, right? So you go, these treacherous conditions, you go in your boat and you navigate and you make it to the other side and you're so grateful for your boat. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The next step, the very next step, not a week, not a month, not a year, the very next step, the biggest hindrance in your life would be carrying that boat on your back. Like if anyone's ever carried a canoe on their back, portaging. I used to lead some canoe trips in the Boundary Waters Wilderness Canoe area. Yeah, it's an infant gift, and as soon as you hit land, it's really hard to carry that. Your practice is the same. Like you need tools for different points in time. And if you carry them too long, if you can't stay in the truth, the changing truth of your conditions for this journey, then you can be a big hindrance as you hold on to things that are not for you. So keep that in mind with the boat. And I wish you well wherever you're at on your journey. Lots of love. Thank you.